The Niners have really created a hell of a situation for themselves that people aren't talking about because Brandon Ayuk is stealing the spotlight intentionally. This is what he wants. But that allows Nick Bosa to sort of just hide in the back of the room real quiet. That's what Bosa does. He doesn't talk. Ayuk draws the attention while Nick Bosa just flies under the radar. So let's talk about Nick Bosa to start this show. Nick Bosa has one of the worst contracts in the NFL. And the theory here, I mean, the theme of today's show is sure, some of these players make jerks of themselves and are complicit in their own career demise. But the 49ers front office needs to be examined a little bit. I mean, we've given them a lot of flowers for their coaching, for their trades, but their front office has made some awful, awful moves. I think it kind of started with the Trey Lance trade, but we swept that under the rug because they lucked into Brock Purdy. And then they got Mac Jones, and they've been able to find quarterbacks. They had Sam Darnold for a minute before they let him go. But the contracts they've handed out over the last few years have been ridiculous. We know they hated the Brandon Ayuk contract, but the Nick Bosa contract is really bad, and they're not out of it yet. Like Bleacher Report recently ranked the worst contracts in the league. Obviously, Deshaun Watson's is number one. They put Bosa at number 4. You could argue it's number 2. They had number 2, Chris Godwin, but he's not making as much money. He got $44 million guaranteed. Number 3 is Dan Moore. He got $50 million guaranteed. Nick Bosa got $122.5 million guaranteed from the Niners. And then TJ Watt got $108 million guaranteed. I think the worst contracts in the league are Watson, Bosa, and TJ Watt. And I think something similar has happened with Bosa and Watt. They've both kind of fallen off since they got the mega big bucks. Both guys were paid as if they're Myles Garrett, but they're not. And with Bosa, like his career trajectory is following his brother's. He's better than his brother. His brother never won, defensive player of the year, wasn't first team all pro, but since he peaked at 25, Nick Bosa. He had 18.5 sacks in 25, 10.5 sacks at 26, 9 sacks at 27, 2 sacks at 28. I mean, he'll have more than 2 sacks this year, most likely, but his career trajectory is clear. We saw it happen with his brother. His brother retired at 30. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Nick retires at 30 as well. This guy has generational wealth. He doesn't need to keep playing football. And the Bosa's always struck me as people who play. It's strictly business for them. Football, the NFL is their business. And I don't know if they're going to play until the wheels fall off. Although you could argue that Bosa's wheels are already starting to fall off. I want to point out that this is how Bosa's contract is structured. His cap numbers have been completely reasonable up through this year. So in 2023, the cap number was 11 million. And I'll do cap percentage because that's really what matters because it's relative what the cap was that year. So in 2023, cap percentage 4.6%, 2024, 4.9%, 2025, 6%, 2026, this year, 6.8%. This is all perfectly reasonable for a good edge rusher. But the problem is in 2027, when he's 30 next year, his cap number jumps to 54.8 million. That's 16.8% of the cap. That's ridiculous. That's high for anyone. He really can't play under that cap number. Well, he could, but the Niners won't win a Super Bowl. I don't think it's hard enough to win a Super Bowl with a quarterback getting taken up that much of your cap. I don't know if it's ever been done with a defensive player doing it. So the way I look at this contract is it was designed to be, ripped up and renegotiated next year. So they thought that Nick Bosa was going to be, here are my prize picks for the 49ers 2026 season. Brock Purdy, 25.5 passing touchdowns, more or less. I'm going to say less. Christian McCaffrey, 974.5 rushing yards, more or less. I'm going to say less. Mike Evans, 924.5 receiving yards, more or less. That's a tough one. I'm going with less. Go to Prize Picks, use promo code HMA, play $5 and get 50 instantly in lineups. Again, that's code HMA. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Hall of Famer, first team all-pro guy. He hasn't been that since they signed him. So if he has a great year this year in a contract push, stays healthy, he would expect an extension next year. Otherwise, they could trade him or they could cut him. Um, maybe they could trade Nick Bosa because while his cap number would be 54.8 for the Niners, his base salary is 32.6. There are option bonuses as well. But it seems like maybe the other team he wouldn't be as expensive for another team. Either way, though, what matters for the Niners, the cap number be 54.8 if he's on the team, and if they trade him or cut him before June 1 next year to actually get assets that they could use, like in the draft, to help the team in 2027, his dead cap number would be 49.2. So one way or another, if they cut him, if they keep him, he's gonna be a huge problem financially for the Niners in 2027. The only way he's not a huge problem for the Niners financially in 2027 is if they extend his contract, which I don't know that that's really an option for Nick Bosa. He might be considering retirement at this point. His contract ends after 2028. Will he play in 2029 at 32 years old? I have my questions. I have my doubts. But in 2027 and 2028, he's just outrageously expensive. 16.8% of the cap in 2027, 13.4% of the cap in 2028. You can't have that and be serious about winning. So it seems to me that they either need to extend him, which I would be concerned about, but at least that would mean that he stayed healthy this year and played at an all-pro level, which I don't know that he can even physically do that anymore after the third ACL. I mean, last year he just fell apart in the third game. He didn't get carried out in a stretcher. It was a run play. The knee snapped. He walked off the field. That was it. We never saw him again. Couldn't make it through 3 games. I mean, I don't think he wanted to play last year. He couldn't do it. So if he can't do it this year, they gotta cut him next year. You can't have him on at a $54 million cap number if he's playing 7-8 games a year. If he's not giving you double-digit sacks, you can't have him. And he may not be tradable on this contract. We'll see. So there's a world where the Niners cut Nick Bosa next year and don't even free up cap space. They free up $5.6 million if they cut him before June 1. If they cut him with a post June 1 designation, they would free up $33 million in cap space. Maybe they would do that. But it just seems like the Niners front office made some horrendous financial decisions. And before they can really rebuild and move forward, they got to rip the Band-Aid off and finally feel the pain of making these decisions, making these mistakes. And you don't think of Nick Bosa as a mistake, but that contract was a bad extension. Not the worst extension the Niners have ever given out. But they gave out this Nick Bosa extension right after he had the best season of his career, right after he went 15.5 sacks and 18.5 sacks in back-to-back seasons. And they felt like that's what he was going to give them. That's what they paid. They made him the highest paid non-quarterback ever in the history of the league. That's like stuff that's reserved for Myles Garrett, who's going to the Hall of Fame. Nick Bosa's not going to the Hall of Fame. He's not going to the Hall of Fame. Since that contract, they gave him that contract extension, he's given him 21.5 sacks in 3 seasons. That's not good. And each of the last 2 seasons, he's had injuries. And they're not going to be able to make him look crazy. He's not going to start posting a bunch of erratic stuff on social media. He's just going to be quiet. And if the Niners cut him, it'll be interesting to see how fans react. And if they don't cut him, it'll be interesting to see if they did that because fans would be upset about it. Because if they just keep holding on to Nick Bosa and paying him all this money, you wonder, like, for what? It's almost like he's like the Kawhi Leonard of NFL pass rushers at this point. It's like, yeah, he's pretty good when he's out there, but like, how many games a year is he going to play? And will he be good in the? I'm just saying. I don't think Niner fans are ready to hear it right now about Nick Bosa, but he's a problem on their books. He's like a Brandon Ayuk. He's making way more money than Brandon Ayuk made. $122 million guaranteed, and he played 3 games last year. No one's talking about that. There's no angst directed at Nick Bosa. Why is that? Just because he's quiet? Maybe. But he has a much bigger financial hit on the organization than Brandon Ayuk.